Can humans really have worms and parasites? Yes, we can. In this episode, Ginger Buller discusses with Dr. Martin Bales of Bales Photonics using photobiomodulation for pathogen ablation.
So we're going to just jump right in with Dr. Bales, and we're going to talk about photobiomodulation. You've had lots of years and a lot of background, even with your father. And before we get too far, I just want to make sure that you know this is Dottie. Dottie's actually my sister, and she is in charge of our educational program, letseducation.org. And you've sent a lot of students to our program, and that's how we know you.
I have. I send everybody I can, and I hope that the most of them do. You have a wonderful course. In not wanting to be a hypocrite, have gone through your course and took it,
Well,
and think it's a great stepping stone. We've had a lot of people that have come to us that didn't have a lot of medical background, and so but they really want to help people with our device and others. And I think it's a great way for them to get certified and then get the band certification also with the malpractice insurance. That's wonderful. You've set that up.
Yes, and so we're currently filming the next level, which gears more to the practitioner of photobiomodulation. But after this conversation's over, we want to have a conversation with you about creating the modules specifically for your device. So before we get too far down the road, can you just tell us what's the name of your device and how did it come about and where do you live and all that good stuff?
Okay, so our device is called Firefly, and I use our in a plural because it really is my father and I. My father's the main inventor. We've been doing photobiomodulation research and development, manufacturing devices for 25 years. So we're not exactly new to the game. Our original device was called the photonic stimulator, and we laughed at the specifications like power now and wonder how we were getting the results we were getting then with those lower powers to and wavelengths to what we're doing now. I reside in both Northern and Southern California. I kind of co-locate there. I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area right now, and that's where our office is. But I'm always traveling, going and seeing my new customers and visiting people to learn more because I don't know everything and I want to know more. So,
right, and so when I looked at your website of the device that you all use, it is a handheld device.
We have a couple of different models. Our main handheld was called Firefly Glow, and it's our entry-level home one. Our more powerful and more packed home one is called Firefly Wellness. And so that actually has a control box with the wand. The Glow is just the wand that plugs into like a laptop transformer. And then our Pro system, which is for the practitioners, is quite a bit more involved. It's a bigger control box that can actually drive 2 wands at once, and a laptop and a device called F-scan. We'll get into that a little bit later with the frequencies, but it's a whole package for doing our pathogen ablation.
So I love to ask the different people that I'm interviewing about light therapy or photobiomodulation, as our listening audience is getting used to the word photobiomodulation, but some of them found us because they do photobiomodulation and they want to see if anybody's out there using the right words just to start with. But I like to ask, what is the practical application of your work? I mean, obviously, you are in the wellness field helping humanity. That's a given. But you're really targeted on who you can help, and you have some amazing results. And I'd love for you to share anything you want to share about that.
Okay, so to start with, there's kind of 3 pillars to our Firefly device. There's pain management, and dysfunction. And we've been doing that for the 25 years. There's been about 3 or 4 models that have come out between our original photonic stimulator and the Firefly. So it was pain before the Firefly was the only thing. Now we're in the realm of neurocog, so like MS, Parkinson's, dementia, Alzheimer's, those, and also in kind of related gut pathogen ablation. So that's what the big thing is. And Firefly's been out for about 5 years. And we have learned a lot and honed a lot of protocols with it in that time, because when you come out with something new, well, 5 years ago, I was in clinical practice myself. So I was able to actually use it and try and see different results. Not trying to treat my patients like guinea pigs, but as you know, most photobiomodulation is pretty safe. So it's
Right.
not a big risky proposition to administer sessions on somebody. We have had quite a few really amazing testimonials. One of the latest ones that came out, or actually one of my first ones, and this was one of the first patients that I ever used the Firefly with for pathogen ablation, ended up after one session passing a 3-foot ropeworm.
Wow.
I don't know if you saw that one.
No, I didn't see that one.
So
And
it's
what
kind of
did they
funny.
do?
Well,
Like,
they were sick for like a decade. I'm happy to share links to these. They're on our YouTube and
okay.
Rumble channels as well. They're kind of funny to watch. Maybe not that one when you're eating, but
Right. Better
it's
out
just
than in.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Had ruined her life. She was, later 30s, and for a decade, nobody could figure out what was wrong with her, and had gone, tried natural, naturopath, chiropractic, acupuncture, all those. Finally went to the allopath. They called her crazy and put her on antidepressants, and came to see me and was very skeptical. And I did this, and I had just gotten the Firefly in the practice, and so I was even like, okay, what's going to go on with this? Didn't hear from her a couple weeks, came in and gave this testimonial and said, wait, let me grab a video camera. We filmed that, and it just completely, I don't want to spoil too much, but it completely changed her life. She was a normal person after passing that.
So, for years, my teacher was Hannah Kroger, and she was an herbalist, a master herbalist, homeopath, blah, blah, blah. And so back, 35, 36 years ago, she was telling us, people have, pathogens, parasites and stuff. And, back then everyone was like, what? But when I was a little kid, our parents, we got worm medicine twice a year. I mean, that was just common. That's what we did, and we know now, and it's becoming more accepted that okay, well, maybe humans do have pathogens, or parasites rather, and we know that worms and parasites, but it's only, in my experience, in the last couple of years that people don't just freak out even when you say that. Tell us, but tell us some of the other things about using photobiomodulation and the Firefly for pathogens.
Well, first of all, to your point, my father commented the same thing, that it was very common to do a annual or semi-annual cleanse, and we've lost that. And my big, when I started with it 5 years ago, by the way, I practiced at a very large center in Irvine called Center for New Medicine. It was a 30,000 square foot facility, so pretty all the toys, everything you want there. So the Firefly fitted well, but the biggest thing was, I don't think I feel terrible, but I don't think I have pathogens. I haven't been to Mexico. I haven't been to Thailand. And I said, you can just go down to that Pokeball place down the street if you want to.
Right.
So I think, but in the years that I was there definitely is more of an awareness that you don't have to go to a developing nation to get, yes, you can get them there, but you can get them in this country. And we think we're so clean now, this many years later, but it's not true. And I think I'm not going to say it's the root cause of everything, but it is definitely involved in almost all chronic disease. We had a cancer, integrative cancer center at our clinic as well. And I did a lot of what's called the F scan with those to determine what's going on. Actually, I'll just start there. So when I first see a patient, we purchase and incorporate a device called F scan, which stands for frequency scan. It's from Switzerland. We don't manufacture it. And it, in about a minute and a half, it's an energetic testing device. In a minute and a half, actually comes up and says by name what pathogens, meaning parasites, bacteria, and viruses, because we have bacteria and viruses in our gut too, not just parasites, are possibly existing. And it also gives what's called the resonant frequency of the pathogen, and that's what's used to ablate it. So basically, resonance, going back to high school physics, is the lady singing "Breaking the Glass."
Right.
So for
you
those
match
out there,
that.
yeah, she's matching the frequency with her voice to break that glass. The other one, for those familiar with Washington State, in 1942, the Tacoma Narrows Bridge went over. or sorry, blew over would be more correct. So they built a bridge across the Tacoma Narrows. You can imagine Narrows, there's a lot of wind. They drove plenty of heavy trucks over it. It was fine. One day the wind came up just right and the bridge turned into a pendulum. It was actually a suspension bridge modeled after the Golden Gate. So those are the best, strongest type of bridges to, supposedly withstand earthquakes and such. And it went right over. So they rebuilt it more aerodynamic. So it can happen to a glass, it can happen to a bridge, and we're making it happen to the bad guys, which are the pathogens, mainly in our gut.
which we like. And so how does that happen? Like, what do you do to make it go away?
Okay, so we perform the F scan, and we see also always correlated with patient symptomology. As I like to say, we're treating the patient, not the F scan. Okay,
Right.
I think in medicine, people are treating MRIs, not patients these days. MRI is great
Right.
information, but
Good point. Good point. Right.
I actually listen to my patients, and so okay, you're feeling this in the gut, and you've got these potential gut pathogens from the F scan. Let's go with these. So we choose those corresponding frequencies. Now, it isn't quite as easy as just plunking that frequency through the light. Researchers starting in the later 1930s, specifically someone called Royal Rife,
Right.
was there. An interesting story with him. He came over from Eastern Europe, kind of like Tesla, and actually ended up in San Diego, where I lived part of the time. And I've been extensively through his documentation, which has addresses, and there are all these San Diego addresses that you can drive by, but it's like he's been scrubbed from history purposely.
Right.
His house and all of these. So what he found out was that it wasn't one frequency to ablate. He invented microscopes that could see bugs. That was actually his first inventions. No one had ever seen tuberculosis before. They could prove it existed on a gram-positive stain or such, but they'd never actually seen it. So he was actually using radio frequencies, not light, and tuning his radio frequencies. But what he found, two things: you needed a master carrier frequency to put on top, kind of like a radio station. Radio isn't you getting on top of the radio tower and yelling. It's putting your voice on a carrier frequency, which is what you're tuning in on AM, FM, at least not satellite, but AM, FM on your dial, right? So he was piggybacking it on there. And then also he was using a lot of sidebands. So without getting too technical, you have one frequency, and then mathematically derived, you have what are called sidebands, quarter and half wave sidebands. For those that are musical and play the piano, a little bit like octaves. Okay, so there's a middle C, and then there's another C, and they're all mathematically intertwined.
Right.
So we're putting those sidebands and that carrier frequency through the light, and voila, due to our high power and permeation depth, we're able to get down into the gut areas, specifically the small intestine, and we're having a lot of people pass a lot of things. I saw a lot of toilet bowls in Orange County. We'll say that. Okay.
Okay, and so again, just because we're not looking at your device, it's a device that you hold in your hand and point towards the body. You don't stick it up in the body, right?
No.
Okay, so explain to the people, how do you use that?
Okay, and also I've had people come in and start getting undressed, and they thought they had to disrobe to get the F scan. That's not true at all.
Keep your clothes on.
Yeah, keep your clothes on.
Okay.
We're not at the beach. Yeah. So I'll start with the F scan first. The patient holds a cylinder in their left hand, and then there's a finger clipped on their right middle finger, and that's working by putting frequencies out to the cylinder. They're going through the body, and then it was found that the patient's skin resistance would change when they're exposed to a frequency that's associated with a bug that's in their system.
Got it.
So a little bit like a radar, putting out and then reading the skin resistance very, very, very quickly. So that's how the F scan works. And then when we're able to load, we have created a special application for our Firefly that allowed you to import the F scan data, the frequencies that you want it to run. So it automatically runs them to the light for a couple minutes each. And interestingly enough, and just to be more gross, not everybody, but a number of patients reported feeling tingling and wiggling going over certain areas. Like if we found a liver fluke or that, actually when we were over the liver, they actually felt it like they were trying to get away. I know something, yeah, something out of Alien, right? Remember that movie? It's about a 10-minute session. It just feels kind of warm, maybe a little tingling. People not only are passing quite a few of these parasites, but also some of mine broke out in hives for a little bit. It turns out when the bugs die off or we ablate them, they give off chemicals that our liver doesn't know how to process, kind of like with cancer. And
Right.
so I would put many of my patients, if they take it on activated charcoal, which is a binder which would help grab on. It also prevented, and the Lyme community will know this, a lot of the Herx reactions. It's the same kind of thing. Never severely hurt anybody and was temporary, but we don't defecate or urinate a lot of these toxins out very well. Our body tries to sweat them out, which explains the hives. So they come out through the skin. So like an infrared sauna or sweating would be good as well.
Oh, good. Yeah. So you could follow up with something like that to support them, the detox.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. Now, so those are two separate pieces of equipment. You've got the diagnostic one that's called the F-scan,
Yep.
correct? And
Yes.
then the Firefly, which is photobiomodulation at certain frequencies or wavelengths, yes, to kill in the parasites. Am I saying it right?
Correct. Yeah. One, the F-scan's hooked into a laptop, so it's easy to
Okay.
see, and the reports can be printed off for people to take home. They're always excited with what they have and what's
Woohoo!
ruining their life, right now.
Right.
And then the correct, the Firefly, like for pain management, can be run standalone. It doesn't need to have the frequency information for pain or dysfunction or wound healing. The Firefly, as I mentioned, the Pro has 2 wands, and we're actually outputting 8 wavelengths simultaneously. So it's a little bit different. So 3 red, 3 blue, and 2 infrared, and then we're modulating that with the frequencies to do the pathogen ablation.
And so if you're pointing at the midsection of the body, but the issue happens to be in the foot, will the work get down to the foot, even though you're addressing the gut?
The gut is the home of the immune system. It's also called the second brain. And how it ties into not so much foot, but the neurocog is that there's a huge gut-brain connection. And I think just like people are becoming more aware of pathogens in that gut, even in this country, people are becoming more aware of the huge gut-brain connection.
Right.
So in answer to your question, most of what is found in the F-scan is in the gut. If it was something like obviously pain for the foot, we'd go right for the foot. Or if it was a known like MRSA or a staph infection, we can look up those frequencies, program it, and use it right over the wound on the foot.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
And then so you can determine which pathogen is bothering that foot ulcer or whatever, or wound.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm a pickleball player, so we have a lot of hip injuries and knee injuries. So what happens if one of my pickleball friends injures themselves? How would you work with your device and understanding for those kinds of athletic injuries?
Are they your opponent or are they on your team?
Oh, they're the opponent.
Oh, well, then we don't know anything
We
about
let them go. Okay, now they're on my team.
Okay,
Right.
sure. So as I mentioned, we've been doing pain management for 25 years, and a lot of things are happening with that. We are stimulating the mitochondria of the cell. The mitochondria is a little powerhouse inside the cell. People would know this if they'd taken your course, but I know not everybody that's listening has taken your course.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Well, they weren't paying attention in science class.
Yes. So
Right.
little refresher, mitochondria is a little powerhouse inside every cell, and when we have damaged cells, or obviously dead cell, but damaged, the mitochondria is usually not functioning correctly. That creates a lower cellular voltage. One great book, or there's actually 2 of them that I like to put my patients if they want to read more, is Healing is Voltage by Dr. Jerry Tennant. That's a really important one, and it ties right into all the energy medicine of which photobiomodulation falls under, and also the body electric. And it really talks about how we're electric beings. We are. You can actually measure voltages of cells. And people that are sick have a lower cellular voltage. Photobiomodulation stimulates the mitochondria, gets the voltage to come back up, gets the patient better. Also, breaking up scar tissue. Using photobiomodulation causes what's called a nitric oxide dump. Nitric oxide was molecule of the year 10 years ago or something. And
1998, I think, is when
it was more than that. Okay.
Well, 98 is when the three PhDs won the Nobel Prize for discovering what nitric oxide does in the body. So I don't know if the molecule actually got an award. I don't know about that one, but I know the people who discovered what it does got an award.
They got an award, and then since then there's been a slew of nitric oxide supplements, which I used to put my patients on. Well, it turns out the photobiomodulation causes the nitric oxide to become disconnected to the deoxygenated hemoglobin. So hemoglobin is what carries oxygen around. But then when the oxygen is distributed, it's deoxygenated hemoglobin. It causes nitric oxide dump in the local area. When that causes vasodilation, opens up the blood vessels. It's what the nitric oxide does if you take it orally, would cause a general violation. So with that, we're bringing in more blood. In Chinese medicine, we're bringing in more qi or energy to heal the area. So the big trip is that the photobiomodulation is not healing you, you're healing you. The photobiomodulation is causing that process to happen a lot faster.
Yeah, so we're giving the body the information it needs to heal itself.
Correct.
When we use photobiomodulation. So, the big story, the big concern, or what everybody's talking about right now is cognitive decline.
Yep.
Okay, so let's talk about the practical application of what you're doing. And, because so much of the world thinks, uh-oh, my mom or my partner or my dad or, my aunt is they're beginning Alzheimer's. So it's going downhill and it's never going to go back uphill. There's no going back uphill because it's all downhill. And that's not our experience using photobiomodulation. So I'd love to hear your use of your devices and your work with people in cognitive decline.
Sure. So we'll start with people that are already in cognitive decline. They've already had a diagnosis of dementia, which usually, as you said, if nothing is done, and this includes lifestyle changes too, obviously. I mean, the photobiomodulation is great, but oftentimes it doesn't do it all by itself.
Right.
Someone that's already been diagnosed, again, it's low cellular voltage. The other problem that I'm seeing is really bad gut health, including having parasites on there. I can't tell you how many people had mental fog that came in. All I did was treat and ablate pathogens in their gut, and the mental fog went away. Never even treated the head of the cranium. So that being said, our protocols are to start with the gut and then move to using the Firefly on the cranium, and our output powers. And one of our wands maximum power is 37,710 milliwatts. Now, if I had told you that before and you didn't know, you'd be thinking we'd be blowing a hole in somebody, but burning them. But we're not. We're LED, and we always keep painting or keep the wands moving. We don't just isolate them. Remember, the Pro has 2 wands. To get the best permeation depth, and the best permeation depth light is the infrared. Although we're running all 3, red, blue, and infrared, is we do the opposite of what they said on Ghostbusters. We cross the streams, okay? So when you cross the streams, you're going to get about roughly 75,000 milliwatts in about an 1.5 inch square area. And our protocol is to go over the cranium just like someone was giving a buzz cut. So just nice and slowly, just like a buzz here and then a buzz back here. But 20 seconds to go from the anterior hairline to the posterior. So there's been a lot of research on this, not with the Firefly and using it. We had one actually dementia study. We increased people's mini mental by 35% in 10 sessions. Wow. And that was actually, this was before the gut stuff. This was just using it on the cranium. This was even when Firefly first came out. So we do have some data. It was a small trial. Others have used photobiomodulation, though, just on the head. I don't think anybody else is really doing a lot with parasite ablation. Maybe they're doing supplements or pharmaceuticals, but they're not with photobiomodulation. Our success stories have been incredible. One man actually reversed his wife's dementia. She couldn't get out of bed by herself. She didn't know who, she had trouble remembering her birthday. She knew who she was and he was, but birthday, and this was with the home unit that he purchased, or just our home, our wellness model. And in about a month and some was able to reverse it, that she could even walk on her own, get up on her own. And they actually undiagnosed her. We had another one, the gentleman was in a memory care facility, and he was going downhill. His second wife was bringing him to one of our practitioners. This was in Salt Lake City area to see for gut pathogen ablation and was actually able, after time, the orderlies noticed that he was helping them with the other people, was able to pull him out, and he is building patio furniture and gardening. I don't know anybody that's ever come out of a memory. So to your point, you can go back up. Okay.
Right.
I think there's a point, especially if there's too much of the amyloid plaque settles in the brain. I don't think we're getting rid of that. I wish we were, but I don't think it's at that point.
Marcy's doing some good work with, and, she reads, and for those who are just listening to this as the first episode, she reads all the research. And so she's using the 40 hertz flashing light as well as sound with the photobiomodulation, and really doing some great work with that. So apparently that's targeting the plaque. So that's cool. And I know you and she'll be chatting about that. Okay, so
One
with,
other aspect I wanted to
yeah,
bring, that was the people that have been diagnosed. I want to talk about a little prevention.
okay,
So
yeah,
it's
right.
theorized that before the diagnosis, if someone feels, it usually starts with simple, where do my car keys go? You know, more often than should. Or I
Right.
walked into this room. Now, wait, why did I come in here? There was a reason I came in here. I can't remember. If you can start there, I'm theorizing, especially if you can clean up people's guts with the parasites and use some over the cranium, that it's possible that with a decent lifestyle, there won't be a decline.
Great.
Even if their family member had it in the past, one of their elders.
So with parasites, life cycle being 21 days or so, right? So, you know, a person comes in, they have the ablation done for the parasites. They may go past them all because there might be some eggs, some larvae, whatever, still in the body. How do you address that, or do you not need to?
I would often put them on. I'm a fan of natural, so some natural supplements. And we actually have a PDF file that I'm happy to share that has supplements that can be purchased actually off of Amazon or your favorite retailer that are they're over the counter. Obviously, they're not prescription. Now, sometimes you do need an albendazole or those. What I noticed or know is that the parasites are usually about a 28-day cycle. It's usually about a month. And so we would try to have people in during the full moon, which I know some people think out there think I'm crazy, and I thought I was crazy when I
No.
thought of that. But they really come out and party. They to be really disgusting. They lodge themselves into the endothelium, the inner lining of our usually small intestine, and they come out to reproduce and party at the full moon. So they're most vulnerable then. The good news is, or the bad news is that supplements in that don't really work that well away from the full moon because they're buried. They're also behind a biofilm. They put out and the best way to describe biofilm, it's like a fish slime that they hide beneath. The good news is for us, the firefly goes through the biofilm and permeates into the wall. So you can do firefly anytime, although I did find it most effective at the full moon when my patients were on supplements. So I kind of tackle it that way.
So you're in California, two different places, but you have practitioners all over the place. So if someone found one of your practitioners, went into the office, they, you know, had the gut worked on and killed the parasites, when do they go back? Do they need to go back, or they're taking supplements, or what do they do? What would be a general course of treatment in one of your clinics?
Sure. So usually someone's going to come in. Most of them came in because they're having gut issues or they just don't feel well. So they're already in a disease state. A few people came in for prevention. So probably prevention would be just one round over the full moon. Usually it's like 3 to 6 rounds, so 3 to 6 months, but not of sessions all the time, just over the full moon. If I would say they're kind of mild, moderate. I had people come to see me that were having 8 bouts of diarrhea every day and couldn't leave the house for 5 years. And so those I would put them on kind of more of an intensive because obviously they were very anxious to get better.
Right. But they come in, like, how long is a treatment? They come into your office, it's 10 o'clock in the morning. When are they leaving the office?
Oh, probably about 10:30. So the
Okay.
scan takes about a minute and a half, and then the session time is 10 minutes. And
Okay.
then I would probably have them in a frequency like 3 times in a week, 1 time per week, and this is true for the pain management and the cognitive disorder too. 1 time per week does not work.
Right.
It's kind of like 2 minimum. I think that's true of a lot of photobiomodulation.
So 3 times a week for how long?
Probably a couple weeks.
Okay.
Depends. I had to come in and they said, "Oh well, I feel okay." I said, "Well, why don't you come back to the full moon?" If it wasn't the full moon, so it's not. It doesn't end up costing a lot. Like I said, it's pretty harmless. We get the results, and the best part is we can always re-F scan and see
Right.
where we are.
Is that why you sell a lot of the, I'm assuming you sell a lot, and I know this is not a commercial, but for my own understanding and for people listening, is that why one would buy the Firefly for home, because so they don't have to come back into the office?
Not so much
Or do
for the
you still
pathogen
have them?
ablation.
Okay.
The upper end home unit, the wellness model, does have three pre-programmed frequencies that are set for like general pathogen. Most
Okay.
of our home users still come back to the office because they want to get the F scan and get the
Okay.
individual frequencies for them.
Got it. Got it. So it's more it's a more targeted
It's more
therapy.
targeted, and then use the
in
home model for pain, wound, dysfunction, scar tissue, that kind of stuff.
and keeping their body well.
And using over the cranium if they're in a decline. So a
Yeah.
lot of the home users would use it every day, the seniors that are maybe in a little bit of decline mentally, and then they would go in once a month at the full moon to get an F scan and a few rounds of the pathogen ablation.
Okay, that's awesome. So you've been doing this for how many years?
Light therapy for 25. The Firefly's
Okay.
been out for about 5.
And your father was doing it before you. And
Right.
is he still on the earth plane?
He is 82 and he's going to be 83, and he uses the photobiomodulation every morning, the Firefly every morning on his head.
Okay.
And I think that definitely plays a difference, because he's not your average 82-year-old. It's like talking to a 52-year-old over the phone. He's on no
Okay.
pharmaceutical drugs. And him and I walk around a lake 3 days a week, 3 miles with big hills.
Wow. That's awesome. Okay. And so, well, how would someone find one of your practitioners? I mean, do you have them all over the country, don't you?
We do. We do. On our website, balesphotonics.com, there's a Find a Practitioner page. And I want to tell you that that is maybe 1/3 of the practitioners that are actually out there. Some practitioners are so booked they don't want to be listed on the page.
Right.
And actually, I'm happy about that, because it's kind of a tease to look up and see, oh, there's a Firefly in my neighborhood, and you call and it's a 2-month waiting list.
Right.
And you're miserable. That's not fair. And then also, there have been some of them that have not followed our protocols. You can make people worse with this. I mean, anything that has the power to help has the power to hinder. Nobody's permanently hurt anybody, but there have been a few people that have had just terrible Herxheimer reactions, and I just will not
Well,
allow those.
tell people what the Herxheimer effect is. So in case they
Sure,
don't
sure.
know.
So it's usually due in our situation to a bug die off. As I mentioned before, our body doesn't know how to chemicals. The chemicals that the bugs, when they die off, they give off. Our liver can't deal with those, so they get in the bloodstream, and it's a lot of flu-like symptoms. Could be a little fever, and that just not feeling good at all. Some people have not felt good, for a couple of days by a few practitioners. So that's, anyway, I took them off the website because I don't want the general public to be exposed to that. It's not right. Those that follow my protocols are fine. Some people get a little bit ambitious and start doing 20 or 30-minute sessions, because more is always better, right? In this country.
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely in North America, that's the thought. If some is good, more is better.
Yeah.
And that ain't necessarily so.
No.
And so, my teacher was Hannah Kroger, and she always would tell us, she did not like the Herxheimer effect, where you feel, oh, you're going to feel worse before you feel better. She said, now think about it. If someone feels worse before they feel better, they're not going to be compliant. They're not going to follow through. So you want to make them feel better, not worse, even though you're not going to kill them, and you're not going to. But if I went to your office and I felt, or not yours, but to a practitioner's office, and I came out like, oh my God, I'm having this detox effect for 3 days and I feel like crap, I'm really not going back for the follow-up.
No,
And
probably
if
not.
they
And we don't
yeah,
want
even
that.
if they explained it to me, and
Yeah.
even if eventually I felt a lot better, I still, which I probably would in that case, right? Eventually I'll feel a lot better, but we prefer not to do it that way. So I'm glad that you use that caution with your practitioners. And so then, a lot of the people who are listening to our podcast are in the wellness field. They're practitioners, physicians, PTs, and whatever, nurse practitioners, and all of that, massage therapists, etc. People that would be interested in learning more about your work and maybe using your devices. And the new classification with FDA is, if a device can diagnose, then it's called a device. If it can only treat, it's called a product. So you have both. You have device and you have product. So what's the process for a practitioner who would want to use this in their, in their practice? What are what do they do? What do they have to go through to use your device?
Okay, so if they're a practitioner, we say the F-scan assesses, not diagnoses.
Okay.
And also the
Perfect.
Firefly is a wellness product. So it's not a
Okay.
medical device by the FDA. Okay. It
Yeah.
also, which helps in a lot of states, it's an LED, not a laser. Because in a
Great.
lot of states, obviously medical doctors can do what they want, but me as an acupuncturist or chiropractors sometimes can't use lasers, but they can use LED. So
Yeah.
they're free. They should all, everybody should check their state board requirements, but we haven't had one that was in any of those naturopaths or anything that was not able to use our devices. I highly recommend that either they, or a lot of times they're the doctor, they're not the ones, administering the sessions. They have a tech for that, that the tech come see you and do the Let's certification and get the bands listing with the malpractice insurance. And I tell them it isn't just a hoop to jump through. You're going to learn a lot about photobiomodulation in the thing, which is stuff you should know because your patients or clients are going to be asking about it.
Right. Yes, you want to be able to speak like an educated person, and even just the fundamentals of this is not photobiomodulation is not woo woo. I've had so many people say, well, my husband would come in here or let me come back or whatever. But if there was only some science behind this,
Oh,
it
jeez.
always just cracks me up because there's like, I don't know, 10,000 published studies on photobiomodulation, and a lot of it's on pubmed.gov.
.gov. I tell
Yeah.
all of my new practitioners, we have a monthly meeting, both two different ones, one for the home users and one for the pro. And I just say, if you ever want to know, just go to pubmed.gov, type in photobiomodulation, space, whatever disease or condition you want.
Right. And it'll populate. So, NASA's, who's probably done more research than anybody on light therapy or photobiomodulation, and it used to be called LLLT, low level laser
Laser.
therapy, and at some point it was low level light therapy. But regardless, you'll find plenty on there. But now I even forgot the question I had asked you, something about the education.
Yeah. So we include two Zoom trainings for the pro, one for the home wellness device. So I want my practitioners trained on how to use it, and it's mainly been received with open arms in a clinic. Usually, their existing clinic is booking up really fast. One thing I want to comment on for the practitioners listening, and even the individuals, the stool samples. Sorry, it's a bad joke. Are crap. Okay, they don't work. The woman that passed the 3-foot worm had multiple stool samples that said she had no parasites. I've had people that have taken pictures of things coming out of them after even albendazole, not photobiological, just a pharmaceutical, okay, or ivermectin of toilet that was obviously a parasite. It wasn't something they ate. It looks like something from outer space, and their stool samples were negative. So just know that listen to your patient, and just because remember you're treating the patient, not the stool test.
Right,
Those can
right.
be tools, but just be careful with that because it happens every day.
Right. And so I would imagine a lot of what people are saying, is, fat at my gut is really a load of parasites.
Definitely the parasites can cause an inflammatory, and a lot of weight is water. Water weighs a lot more than fat does, and a lot of that isn't that, it's inflammation in our abdomens and waistlines. If you get that we had a fisherman come in a clinic in the Hamptons, Long Island, and he lost 15 pounds after his parasite cleanse. And he probably was eating a lot of raw fish through those older seasoned fishermen.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
And
right.
so yes, I don't claim weight loss in that, but people have lost weight due to losing water weight due to getting their inflammation down.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So what haven't I asked you about that you're like, wow, we're missing this whole section or something that,
Okay, well, I'll talk about something exciting.
Okay.
We are currently planning a clinical trial for photobiomodulation and infertility.
oh,
Yeah, so there's one device out there that works. We just in clinical have assisted a couple just doing the pathogen ablation and getting pregnant. So we weren't trying, but they had been trying type thing, even with IVF. And that is going to be pretty groundbreaking because there's only a couple studies that's the one thing on PubMed, type in photobiomodulation and infertility, and everything is based on sperm. We're treating the woman's lower abdomen. ovaries. So that's going to be pretty exciting. I had never thought of that, but I had practitioners calling me saying, you know, my patient's been trying for a year naturally to get pregnant. I did a couple pathogen ablation, and they came in and said, I don't think you can see me because one of our contraindications is pregnancy, just for the abdominal ones.
Right.
I don't. And she said, why? And she says, I'm pregnant. So yeah.
Wow, that I love that. That's awesome. And it makes total sense, because
Yeah.
yeah, once you clear out the environment, Hannah always used to say, pay attention, it's the environment. It's the environment, like Pasteur said about, bacteria, whatever. It's the environment. We've got to watch about, the environment. So once that's all cleaned out, the body can function better. It's safe to have a baby now.
Yeah.
So, that makes total sense. The body's so smart. Absolutely. Okay, and what other things are you working on? What about like fibromyalgia? Let's do that one.
Okay, so fibromyalgia is a bucket diagnosis, as you know. It's when they've ruled everything out, kind of like complex pain syndrome, or my favorite from the military, Gulf War syndrome. Okay, the people are usually very toxic. A lot of them, their detox pathways are not operational or operating correctly. So you have to go very, very slowly with them, especially at our power levels. So we vary the dosage. You can turn down our lights, but also vary it by time. So it's less than an energetic dose, it goes slower. So I usually say with those individuals where you would do 10 minutes, do a minute or two. A lot of people, I didn't see a lot of people with fibromyalgia, but there's been many of them that literally a sheet or their shirt hurt them. So they couldn't even have a shirt on with that. I mean, they're that sensitive. So my personal take is that they've been poisoned. I'm not saying purposely, it could be just environmental, or they're from the time they were little, their detox pathways didn't work and they just accumulate toxins and are not able to get rid of them, like someone that has a normal functioning detox pathway elimination system. So you have to go slow because the toxins come out, and again, you get into that Herx reaction. So what's really important for them, if they can handle it, is like the far infrared sauna. Sweating is really important. As I mentioned before, we don't really defecate or urinate toxins out that well. Also, as a practitioner, I would look at their metal load, and also tying into that, what is their dental history? Because it ties in the metals because of mercury amalgams. And a lot of times people have had even cancers, and every organ is associated with a tooth. Found out that tooth had a low-grade infection from a root canal. Did the proper thing of removing the tooth and doing ozone, maybe a little PRP, and the cancer shrunk. So I think you have to look at a lot of those with their in terms of photobiomodulation, just go really, really slowly with them. A lot of them can't even handle the heat, that a lot of the devices, including ours, is putting out. And believe them, because a lot of these people get put on antidepressants by the allopathic, and I mean, that's just insult to insult at that point,
Right. And let's talk about then on this, let's talk about Lyme's disease, because these people, wow. I mean, they have nowhere to go, except I know you have success. So
well, I'm not a Lyme literate doctor. A few of our practitioners are, but I can at least say that I understand that chronic Lyme exists, because a lot of the allopaths say, okay, yeah, there's Lyme disease. We throw them on these huge amounts of antibiotics. What do you think that does to their gut flora? It might actually kill the spirochete if they're lucky, but it's going to destroy their gut flora. And then if they're re-exposed, and I personally think it's not just ticks, I think it's mosquitoes and a lot of other biting bugs too. So I would treat it the same. I would go for the gut pathogen ablation. Obviously, there's other supplements out there that can be used. But I do believe that it can be chronic and even affect the brain, even give people pain, like in the form of neuropathy. And again, just like with everything else, get them detox, because probably their detox pathways are not functioning.
Okay, and then how about the family of viruses, the coronaviruses? Otherwise, we know as the COVID-19. Do you work with patients or people who had post-COVID syndrome or any of that?
Absolutely, that is becoming a huge thing. I had one of my first, again, a gentleman came in and he was just out of breath, and we did have a big clinic, like I mentioned, but it was flat. He walked in from the parking lot and he was just huffing and puffing. And I said, he had come in for back pain. And I said, what's going on? And he said, well, I was in the hospital for 40 some days and I got out 6 months ago. And ever since then, I can only exercise 5 minutes and I don't smoke. I've never smoked. So I treated his back pain. I bought a spirometer, which is kind of like an alcohol breathalyzer. You blow in it, but it's not looking for alcohol. It's measuring, you take a deep breath and it's measuring their total tidal or lung volume, just as a metric to have. And in 3 sessions, I think I broke up all the fibrotic tissue. He was up to an hour of exercise. And he was like really bad COPD score level of the spirometer, because that's what it's mainly used for. And he was almost back to normal. So I've worked with that. Definitely the long haulers out there, I would obviously address the gut. The beauty with our system and a lot of photobiomodulation is the protocols don't vary a lot. For example, like from MS or Parkinson's, for me, it's all about cleaning up the gut. One of my favorite mentors always said, okay, there's a proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, right? So they loaded up and it was the last thing, and the camel goes down. Well, to get the camel back up, do you just have to take off that last piece of straw, or do you have to unload the whole camel?
Right.
You have to unload the whole camel.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly. So then, in the news right now, we're hearing about, I think it's Kansas that has a big outbreak of tuberculosis. Have you heard that?
Actually not. I bury myself from a lot of the media out there. But definitely this kid, I'm not claiming to cure or any of these with COVID. I can definitely help long term. Can definitely help even just a simple immune boost. Just so you know, the F-scan did pick up the COVID virus frequency. It was right in the realm where the viruses, most of the bad guys hang out together in the realm.
Okay.
And probably the TB would be right about that too. People sometimes ask about mutations. Well, the good news is, and Rife found this, and Holder Clark said, when something mutates, it only mutates by maybe 1 kilohertz, which isn't very much at all. So our system is able to get even a mutation.
So you mentioned Dr. Holder Clark, and I've taught her work for years. But really narrowing it down, mostly what we use is her 4 cleanses, which are phenomenal. And when you said, people could go online and get some things online, when we were talking about parasite cleansing, and by any chance, were you talking about her parasite cleanse?
I think some of that is included. I am blanking. I'm sorry right now on that protocol. Like I said, I'm happy to share the PDF with everybody. The protocol actually came out by one of the clients of one of my customers, one of the practitioners. And he had already been doing that, and he added the Firefly to it. And he says the two together around the full moon were just gangbusters.
I would be really interested to see pairing those two together, especially, because I know, with the Firefly, okay, it's going to get the job done, but anything maybe residual. And Hannah used to always say, too, that the same herbs that we would use to cleanse the body, we could use to rebuild the body. And so I think that makes sense. But just my mind, since I've worked with Dr. Clark's teachings for, I don't know, 25 years or 30 years, it would be fun to pair the two and just see. Now, what I like, obviously, about your program is how fast it is.
Yeah.
It's fast and affordable for people. And Hannah always used to say, it doesn't matter how good, what good product you have if people can't afford them. If they can't afford to do the protocol, they can't afford to take the products or whatever. So it's nice to know that yours are that sessions, even if they're not going to be like buy the equipment, but go to a practitioner, that it's probably not, $5,000 a session, or anything like that.
Oh, no, we were pricing it that in Southern California, this was a couple years ago, we were charging $75 for the F-scan, the assessment, okay, and then 70 for a Firefly. So the first was 145. And then let's say we always did 1 F-scan and 3 Fireflies, so that would come out to about 285. 285. So that's an assessment and 3 sessions. Now, a lot of the lab tests alone were $500. Took a couple weeks to come back, whereas with the F-scan assessment, we know right there what's going on. And so, and my goal generally, it's in my bio too, was to make photobiomodulation available to the masses.
Yeah.
The masses aren't just the rich,
Well, absolutely. So I know you don't know everybody's prices that use your products, but are they kind of similar to that price now? Or?
Yes, most ask what we charge actually before they purchase it, because obviously it has to make financial sense, like a clinic, for them.
Right.
How many people they can see and administer sessions on. Yes, most of them are doing those figures that I just named. But always from our practitioners, we say before you book, always call and inquire out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's great. It's fantastic. It's now I got to get a Firefly. I'm always, it's like I tell some of my friends, don't show me any new toys, but I am very particular at what I use, because, not only am I going to use it on myself and my family, but if I'm going to put my reputation behind it, I want to make sure that it works. And I haven't tried, be honest, I haven't tried the Firefly because I haven't had one by me, but I know Marcy has. And so I'm going to grab it from her to start with. I'm going to make her lend it to me for now. Anyway, well, listen, this has been delightful. Thank you so much. I'm excited. I'm excited for the world that this is available, because since I met Hannah, for 35, 36 years, I've known what an issue parasites are and how many conditions, diseases, etc., involve parasites. And then Dr. Hulda Clark came around and she really beat that drum, making it even clearer. And it has been my experience all these years, because I've been teaching in the field of energy medicine. We didn't call it energy medicine back then. And my doctorate is in energy medicine, but we called it, just natural healing, right? So the natural healing arts. I've been teaching for 36, 37 years now. And so much of that has been educating people on parasites, and not just physical parasites, but then, spiritual or energetic parasites kind of hang around in that when we have issues with the physical ones. So that's conversation for another time. But I'm just guessing that when you clear up someone's physical form from a parasite load, you might see other things in their energy field clearing up.
Oh, certainly. I'm sure their aura is better. Bottom line, one line to sum this whole thing up, just realize that parasites are most likely involved in any chronic condition.
Yeah.
They may not be the cause of it, but they're there, and they're there maybe as an opportunistic infection, because the patients, it's kind of chicken and the egg. Did they get the parasite and then their health went down? Well, probably the one that passed the 3-foot ropeworm. That's probably what happened. And it can take one bite of raw fish, sushi, or something in a restaurant. It's not hard to get. But even in other cases where maybe something else caused their body to go down, then they were more, susceptible to getting the parasite. Right. So just realizing that for the practitioners out there listening, everybody too, that they are a component, whether you do Firefly or not, whether you do pharmaceuticals for it, like an albendazole or natural supplements, whatever you do, just assume you probably have them, because most people do.
Yeah, just like I said, when we were little kids, and I'm way older than you, but when we were little kids, just twice a year, I remember having, my mother giving us the worm medicine.
Yeah.
And for some way, along the decades, we forgot we did that. So now we're here to remind people, still the case, but there's even an easier, faster way to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to know about all your work. Thank you and your father for everything that you brought to the world, and we look forward to sharing it with you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bowler.
Ginger Bowler has a doctorate in energy medicine and is a certified light therapy instructor, biofeedback instructor, and co-founder of the Light Energy Training Seminars certification program. You can send us an email with your questions and comments to podcast@letskeepitlight.com, and be sure to visit us on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. And remember, let's keep it light.